Under the cold light of Proxima Centauri, the black silhouette of Outpost Sigma 9 floated in silence, a monument of iron and memory. Once, it had been the forward edge of humanity's expansion. Now it was a graveyard watcher, orbiting fields of twisted metal that glinted like the bones of fallen gods. Captain Rian Voss stood before the viewport, hands clasped behind his back, his reflection fractured by impact cracks that spiderwebbed across the reinforced glass. Behind him, the station's bridge hummed with restrained life, screens flickering, consoles breathing out recycled air. Every crew member moved with a rhythm born of long peace, a peace no one fully trusted. Lieutenant Cade Mercer sat at the communication station, tapping through static bursts, his sharp features lit by blue light. "Sir," he said, voice dry as iron filings, "we're picking up something strange on band 16. Weak, intermittent. Doesn't match any known encryption." Voss turned, the motion deliberate. "Origin? Hard to say. Could be a relay bounce from beyond the Perseus Gap. But the pattern," Mercer frowned. "It's not a machine. Someone's speaking." Commander Rian Voss looked up from his intelligence console. A thin man with a face like glass, clear, hard, unyielding. "We shouldn't answer," he said. "Could be a lure. Rax scavengers use ghost signals to map relay activity. The last thing we need is another incident." Voss walked to Mercer's side, leaning over the display. The waveform trembled like a heartbeat under duress. "Play it," he said. The bridge filled with sound, a thin, trembling voice wrapped in static, words breaking through in shards. "To any allied species. Kerin Prime, under attack, they're killing us, please." The message dissolved into noise, replaced by the unmistakable tone of an emergency beacon, 3 long pulses, 1 short. The universal symbol of surrender and plea. The silence that followed was almost reverent. Voss exhaled slowly. The name Kerin stirred something distant in his mind. A pacifist species, he recalled, agrarian, herbivorous, barely post-industrial when the Galactic Compact had discovered them. He'd read their file once. No army, no standing defense. Just songs and harvest rituals under gentle suns. "They are being exterminated," Mercer murmured. "And no one's listening." Dana rose from his chair, fingers steepled. "Captain, you know the protocols. We don't respond to distress signals from non-aligned species without council authorization. The last time we did, we lost 3 fleets and a colony world." "I know the history, Commander," Voss said quietly. "I was there." The bridge lights flickered as the station's systems compensated for a solar flare. Shadows crossed Voss's face, etching years into his skin. "Relay the transmission to Fleet Command," he ordered. "Priority channel." Mercer hesitated. "You think they'll respond?" "I think they'll deliberate," Dana replied before Voss could. "And by the time they finish deliberating, the Kerin will be extinct. Which means we stay out of it." Voss turned to him, eyes cold. "You mistake policy for morality." "No," Dana said. "I mistake survival for common sense." The tension thickened. Everyone on the bridge felt it, the weight of decisions that defined entire species. Humanity had earned its reputation, the Deathworlders, forged on the most hostile planet in the known galaxy. To others, humans were monsters pretending at civility. But monsters, Voss knew, were often the only ones who understood the cost of mercy. The console beeped. Mercer again. "Signals repeating, sir. Strengthening. They're routing through multiple relays now. They are desperate." Voss stared at the projection. The holographic display flickered, resolving briefly into the face of a Kerin male. Delicate skin like translucent jade, wide eyes glistening with terror. Behind him, smoke and fire. "To any who can hear, our defenses are gone. The Rax Dominion is cleansing our cities. We have children in the shelters, please, we beg." The feed broke, replaced by static snow. The bridge seemed smaller after that. "End transmission," Dana said flatly. "Lock it out before it attracts attention." Mercer looked to Voss, unsure. The captain's jaw tightened. "No. Keep it open. Record everything." Dana's voice sharpened. "If the Dominion detects our trace." "Then they'll know we're listening," Voss interrupted. And maybe that's enough. He moved to the command dais. For a moment he said nothing, simply watching the flicker of dying stars on the tactical display. Then, quietly, I remember when no one answered our calls. When Earth burned under alien fire and the compact debated if we were worth saving. We learned, in that silence, what we truly are. Mercer's voice lowered. Deathworlders. Yes. Voss's gaze hardened. And we survived because we refused to be prey. He straightened, the decision crystallizing behind his eyes. Commander Dana, draft a transmission to Fleet Command. Full encryption. Request immediate permission to deploy a reconnaissance group toward Kerin space. Dana folded his arms. They'll deny it. Then I'll act under Emergency Humanitarian Clause E7. That's treason. Voss met his stare without blinking. That's compassion. The two men stood locked in silence, a gulf of ideology between them. Around them, the bridge crew worked without comment. They'd all served under Voss long enough to know that once he made a choice, the universe itself would have to move to stop him. Minutes later, the relay array ignited. Blue light spilled through the viewport as data surged toward the outer sectors. The message sped into the void, carrying humanity's most dangerous promise, attention. Hours passed. No response came. Mercer leaned forward, exhaustion edging his voice. Fleet Command's ghosting us. No acknowledgement, no clearance. Just silence. Voss didn't move. His expression was unreadable. They're afraid, he said finally. Afraid of what happens when Deathworlders fight for someone else's cause. He turned away from the viewport. Power up the long-range transmitters. Send a pulse burst to Titan Command. Tell them to prepare Task Force Vigilant for immediate readiness drills. Mercer's eyes widened. Sir, that's the Deathworlder fleet. You can't mobilize them without authorization. I'm not mobilizing them, Voss said. I'm making sure they're awake. Dana's voice cut in, low and venomous. If you move on this, there's no going back. You'll start something the Council can't control. Then the Council shouldn't have let the galaxy burn this long. The bridge fell into silence again. In that stillness, the station felt alive, the hum of reactors like a heartbeat growing louder, stronger. Outside, debris drifted past like forgotten ghosts. Voss stood by the viewport once more, hands clasped, the light of distant fires reflecting in his eyes. When I was a cadet, he said softly, my instructor told me mercy is a weapon. If you wield it right, it cuts deeper than any blade. Mercer looked at him, uncertain whether to feel inspired or afraid. The captain smiled faintly, the first crack of emotion since the signal had arrived. Let's remind the galaxy what happens when they cry for help, and we're the ones who listen. Behind him, Dana's hand hovered over the comm switch, hesitating between duty and dread. Then he withdrew it slowly. You'll damn us all, he whispered. Voss didn't answer. The stars outside were flickering, distant storms of plasma curling like ghosts across the void. Prepare the fleet, he said. If no one else answers, we will. The order hung in the air like a prophecy. Somewhere beyond the relay lines, the Kerin still screamed into the dark, unaware that their call had reached the most dangerous hands in existence. As the message looped one final time, the station's warning lights dimmed, and a low hum rose from deep within its structure, engines cycling to life after years of dormancy. Sigma-9 was waking, its old systems breathing again. Voss turned from the viewport, his reflection swallowed by shadow. Signal the Deathworlders, he said. Tell them, someone asked for help. The last words lingered as the stars flared white, the first engines roaring to life, and in the quiet that followed, humanity's answer began to burn. Titan's shadow stretched long across the cold expanse of space, its orange haze barely catching the reflection of the massive fleet assembling above it. Dozens of warships drifted in formation, sleek, predatory shapes against the dim light. Their hulls bore the scars of past wars, carbon scoring etched like old memories. Among them, the flagship Vigilant Dawn loomed, its silhouette dwarfing every other vessel. Inside its steel arteries, men prepared for a mission that officially did not exist. Captain Adrian Voss stood on the observation deck as the docking clamps released another cruiser into the void. The air vibrated with restrained power, the low hum of reactors charging, the hiss of magnetic lines engaging. Every movement of the fleet was silent coordination, each crewman part of a greater, unseen rhythm. Humanity's war machine had not forgotten how to breathe fire. The doors slid open behind him. Admiral Kieran Holt entered without ceremony, his gait deliberate and heavy with authority. Holt was a relic of the old conflicts, his left arm replaced by a skeletal prosthetic of black alloy, a testament to battles that had nearly ended the human race. "You've stirred a storm, Adrian," he said, voice carrying the gravel of 1,000 commands. Voss turned, unflinching. The signal was real. "The Keren are being slaughtered. I read the data." Holt moved closer, hands clasped behind his back. "You violated 3 protocols transmitting that message to Titan Command. The Council is not pleased." "The Council can debate in their marble towers," Voss replied. "Out here, silence kills faster than weapons." For a moment, Holt said nothing. The distant gleam of the fleet reflected in his eyes, cold and metallic. "You always had a habit of mistaking compassion for strategy," he said finally. "But you're right. The Rax Dominion has been pushing further into unclaimed sectors. If they are willing to erase a harmless species like the Keren, they're declaring more than war, they're sending a message." Voss studied him. "And what message do we send back?" Holt allowed himself a thin, dangerous smile. "That Deathworlders don't ignore distress calls." Across the deck, screens flickered with fleet diagnostics. Reactor status, green. Weapon calibration, green. Atmospheric drop pods, armed. The Deathworlder fleet was awakening in full, each ship a city of soldiers, engineers, and killers trained by the planet that had shaped them into something the galaxy still whispered about in fear. Lieutenant Cade Mercer entered, his uniform still stained with the oil of docking operations. "Captain, all squadrons report ready. Danner's been confined to comms. Per your order, he's under observation." "Good," Voss said. "He'll understand in time." Mercer hesitated, then added, "The men are uneasy, sir. They know this isn't sanctioned. They're asking who we're fighting for." Voss looked past him, to the swarm of ships beyond the glass. "We fight for the ones who can't." Admiral Holt approached the central holotable. With a gesture, the projection of Keren Prime appeared, an emerald sphere surrounded by orbital debris. Rax attack patterns pulsed around it like infections spreading through a wound. "The Dominion deploys hunter fleets," Holt said. "They target civilian populations first. Fear before conquest. They'll expect resistance from organized militaries, not a full Deathworlder intervention." "Then we give them what they don't expect," Voss said. The door slid open again. A soldier stepped in, broad-shouldered, scarred, eyes of steel. Sergeant Elias Ward saluted sharply. "Sir. Ground divisions ready. Marines are running live-fire drills. If we're dropping into a war zone, we'll be ready to burn it clean." Ward was the kind of man who embodied humanity's legacy, born from chaos, tempered by survival. There was no cruelty in him, only precision. His presence filled the room like a blade drawn from its sheath. Holt nodded to him. "What's your assessment, Sergeant?" Ward's reply was simple. "If the Dominion is killing unarmed civilians, we make sure they never have the chance again. Permanently." A murmur of approval passed among the officers. There was no pretense among Deathworlders. They had learned long ago that the only way to protect the weak was to make the strong afraid. "Dr. Linus Kale is preparing adaptive combat IS," Mercer reported. "If the Rax use swarm tactics, our systems will counter before they can coordinate. He says he can turn their own targeting algorithms against them." "Good," Holt said. "Tell him to integrate with the fleet net. I want predictive fire control up before we exit Titan's shadow." Voss glanced at Holt. "You sound as though you've already decided." "I decided when I saw what the Dominion did to the Van colonies," Holt replied. "You think I don't remember what it was like when no one came for us? I was there when the sky burned over Europa. No one sent help then either." Silence fell again, thick with shared memory. Humanity had never forgotten its near extinction. They had clawed their way out of the ashes of their own death world, and the galaxy had learned to stay cautious. Even peace, when it came, was an uneasy one, built not on trust, but on fear. Voss broke the silence. Then it settled. We go to Kerin Prime. Holt didn't nod, he didn't have to. The Admiral's eyes spoke the agreement. The fleet moves when I move. In the hangars below, preparation became ritual. Men sealed armored suits, rifles locking into magnetic mounts. Dropships hummed, their hulls painted with ancient sigils of extinct cities, reminders of what humanity had lost. Sergeant Ward oversaw the loading bays, his voice echoing through the comms. Keep it clean, boys. We're not here for trophies. We're here to make the sky fall. On the command deck, Holt initiated the fleet's synchronization sequence. Ship after ship aligned into position, engines glowing white-blue as they drew power from Titan's orbital reactors. The Vigilant Dawn shuddered, her frame resonating with energy. Transmit orders to all captains, Holt said. By authority of the Deathworlder Fleet Command, Operation Vigilant Dawn is in effect. Objective, liberation of Kerin Prime. Mercer's hands trembled slightly as he entered the code. Authorization complete, sir. Voss felt the deck vibrate under his boots. Engage jump sequence. The fleet came alive. Lights dimmed as massive energy conduits redirected power to FTL drives. The hum grew into a roar. Outside, Titan's surface bathed the ships in dull amber light as the stars stretched into long white lines. Mercer's voice cracked through the rising sound. Fleet acceleration nominal. All vectors locked. Voss looked toward the stars. Kerin Prime, hold on. Holt clasped a hand on his shoulder, the weight of it heavy and resolute. You've done something irreversible, Adrian. You've woken the wolf pack. Once we strike, the galaxy will remember what Deathworlders are. Voss's tone was steady. Then let them remember. The stars twisted, then vanished into the void as the fleet leapt into hyperspace. Within the compressed silence of faster-than-light travel, only the faint pulse of the ship's core broke the stillness. The men waited, some praying, others sharpening their weapons. There were no illusions here, only readiness. Ward stood in the drop bay, looking through the narrow viewport at the streaking void. You ever think about what it means, he asked quietly to no one in particular, that we're always the monsters they call when real monsters show up? A nearby Marine chuckled darkly. Maybe that's our purpose. Ward said nothing. His eyes stayed on the stars, unblinking. Hours later, Voss returned to the bridge. The tactical hologram pulsed with the rhythm of the fleet, each dot a vessel of unimaginable destruction. He could feel their unity, an entire civilization condensed into one moment of decisive will. Mercer looked up from his station. ETA to Kerin Prime, 6 hours. Voss nodded. Maintain blackout until arrival. No transmissions. No signals. Holt moved to stand beside him. You realize, if this goes wrong, the Council will call it an act of aggression. They'll disown us. Voss didn't look away from the stars. They already have. The Admiral studied him for a moment, then gave a faint, grim smile. Then may the galaxy tremble. Outside, the Vigilant Dawn surged through the void, its engines leaving a silent wake of light across eternity. Behind it, the Deathworlder fleet followed, an armada born from humanity's will to survive, carrying salvation and destruction in equal measure. And somewhere, far ahead, a world was burning. The transition out of hyperspace was violent. Space folded back with a shudder, and the fleet emerged into the orbit of Kerin Prime. The first thing they saw was fire. Entire continents glowed red beneath clouds of ash. Cities that had once shimmered like jeweled forests were reduced to molten plains. Rax warships circled the planet like carrion beasts, their spined hulls dripping plasma, feeding on the last sparks of resistance. On the bridge of the Vigilant Dawn, Captain Adrian Voss stood in silence, his face illuminated by the grim light of the holographic display. Dozens of Kerin transmission beacons flickered and died, one by one, their signals dissolving into static. The few that remained carried only screams. Gods, Lieutenant Mercer whispered, his voice caught between awe and revulsion. They're cleansing the surface. Orbital firestorms. Look at those temperature readings, they are burning the oceans. Voss's jaw tightened. Open full sensor sweep. I want every Rax ship tagged. Across the deck, Admiral Holt leaned forward over the command rail, his cybernetic fingers clicking against the steel. We've seen this before. The Dominion doesn't conquer. It erases. Sergeant Ward's voice came through the comlink from the drop bay below. Captain, we're locked and ready. Just give the word. My men are waiting to fall. The bridge lights dimmed as the main screen zoomed in on the planet. Karen Prime was dying in silence. Its thin atmosphere bled color into space. Sir, Mercer said quietly, we're outnumbered nearly 2-1. Voss didn't blink. Then they have enough targets. Holt turned toward him. You're not seriously suggesting. I am, Voss interrupted. If we wait for perfect odds, the Karen will be dust by dawn. The Dominion needs to learn what happens when they cross Deathworlders. Holt studied him for a long moment, then nodded. So be it. All ships, combat alert. The order spread through the fleet like wildfire. On every vessel, klaxons wailed, lights turned blood-red, and men moved with deliberate purpose. Massive cannons unlocked from their moorings. Reactor cores pulsed to maximum output. The Deathworlder fleet came alive. Target the lead Rax cruiser, Holt ordered. Show them who answers when the weak call for help. Target acquired, Mercer confirmed. Firing solution locked. Fire! The first shot from the Vigilant Dawn tore through space like divine judgment. A rail slug the size of a shuttle screamed across the void and punched clean through the Rax ship, splitting it apart in a burst of white fire. For a heartbeat, everything froze. Then chaos erupted. Rax vessels turned, spines flexing as their plasma batteries flared to life. Beams lanced toward the Deathworlder formation, searing the darkness. Shields flared blue. Explosions rippled across the void. But humanity's ships held their ground. Evasive pattern Gamma 7. Holt barked. All forward units engage. No mercy. The fleet surged forward. Dreadnoughts and destroyers moved as one, their coordinated fire cutting through the Rax like blades through mist. Every impact was final. Every explosion, a requiem. In the hangars, Ward and his Marines waited inside their drop pods, the vibration of the battle thrumming through the walls. Listen to that, he muttered to his squad. That's the sound of Earth's children remembering what we are. The signal came. Deploy. The pods launched like bullets from the Vigilant Dawn's underbelly, a storm of burning steel streaking through Karen Prime's atmosphere. Ward's pod shook violently, flames licking at the glass. Through the haze, he could see the ruined surface, cities shattered, forests turned to cinders. He felt no fear, only purpose. Impact in 10 seconds, someone called over the comms. Ward grinned. Then let's make them wish they never learned our name. The pods slammed into the ground, burying themselves deep into the ash. Hatches blew open, and armored Marines poured out into a nightmare world. The air was toxic, heat rising in waves. Rax warforms skittered through the ruins, towering creatures of metal and flesh, their limbs bristling with weaponry. Ward raised his rifle. Clean sweep. No survivors. That was the heart of the storm. Destroy it, and maybe, just maybe, this slaughter would mean something. Helm, Voss said, bring us to intercept. Full acceleration. Cade turned sharply. Sir, the Zarkol's weapon grid will tear us apart before we're in range. Then we'll tear with it. The Iron Creed surged forward, engines blazing white-hot. Around them, what remained of the Deathworlder fleet formed a ragged spearhead, their battered hulls shimmering against the nebula's light. Each captain knew what it meant, one last charge. No retreat, no surrender. As they closed the gap, the Dominion flagship opened fire. The void came alive with energy bolts that ripped through the forward destroyers. Ships disintegrated under the onslaught, their wrecks spinning like molten debris. Still, the Deathworlders advanced. Cade's voice cracked over the roar of systems failing. Hull breaches on decks 2 through 9. Reactors destabilizing. Override the safeties, Voss barked. Divert everything to forward batteries. But sir. Do it. Cade hesitated only a heartbeat, then obeyed. Power surged through the ship like liquid flame. The Iron Creed's cannons blazed with renewed fury, each volley carving into the Dominion's armor. Holt's console flared with alarms. We've punched through their outer hull. Their power grid's exposed. Then let's give them the sun. Voss keyed the command himself, arming the ship's last remaining warhead, a Deathforge core bomb, forbidden by every treaty. It would annihilate both ships, maybe half the nebula, but end the war. Cade looked at him, eyes wide with disbelief. You'll kill us all. Voss met his gaze steadily. We were already dead when we answered that call. Silence fell across the deck. Then, without hesitation, Cade turned back to his console. Aye, sir. The final coordinates locked in. The Iron Creed dove headlong toward the Zarkul, alarm screaming, hull aflame. Enemy fire raked across the command deck, consoles burst, men fell, but still the ship held course. As the distance closed, Voss caught a glimpse through the viewport, the Dominion flagship's bridge, a cluster of dark figures scrambling in panic. For the first time, he felt no rage, only release. He whispered, "For every world that begged for mercy." The warhead detonated. A sphere of white light swallowed the nebula, consuming friend and foe alike. The shockwave rippled through the void, scattering wreckage across light years. When the glare finally faded, nothing remained of the Iron Creed or the Zarkul. Only drifting fragments and the echo of something ancient, silence. Hours later, scattered transmissions flickered across the Deathworlder channels. The Dominion fleet had broken. The Xel'Tor survived. And across the stars, stories began to spread, of the Deathworlders who answered a call for help, and in doing so, burned away their sins in fire. On a remote observation post orbiting a dying moon, a lone communications officer received the final transmission from Commodore Rian Voss. It was only one sentence, buried in static. Sometimes, to save the light, you must first burn in it. The officer replayed it 3 times before the signal faded forever. And so the legend was sealed, not in triumph, but in sacrifice. The galaxy would remember the Deathworlder fleet not for their destruction, but for their choice. They had come to help. They had stayed to fight. And when the stars themselves seemed to tremble, they became the fire that remade the dark. The Marines advanced in coordinated formation, weapons spitting light and thunder. Each step forward left a trail of smoke and shattered alien bodies. The Raks retaliated with ferocity, but humanity's soldiers were built for Deathworld combat. Their armor shrugged off plasma burns, their tactics were born in hell. Voss watched from orbit, his gaze fixed on the ground feed. Ward's division is holding the line, Mercer reported. Multiple enemy battalions neutralized. Casualties minimal. Minimal, Holt echoed softly. That's the Deathworlder standard. A sudden flare lit the screen. One of the smaller human frigates exploded, debris scattering into the void. The shockwave rocked the Vigilant Dawn. Frigate Seraph is down. Mercer called out. They rammed it, Rak's kamikaze strike. Then pay them back, Holt growled. All guns, broadside volley. Space itself seemed to tremble as the Deathworlder fleet unleashed a coordinated barrage. Hundreds of kinetic slugs and plasma bolts converged in a single devastating arc. The Rak's formation disintegrated under the assault, fragments scattering into the gravitational pull of the planet. From the bridge's viewport, the battle was a tapestry of light and destruction, humanity's answer written in fire. Voss clenched his fists. No quarter. Every Rak's ship in orbit goes dark before we leave. On the surface, Ward's unit reached the central ruins of Kerin Prime's capital. What had once been a sprawling garden of crystal towers was now a wasteland of ash. Among the rubble, they found survivors, small, trembling figures with translucent skin, eyes wide with disbelief as armored humans approached. One of the Kerins stumbled forward, clutching a child to its chest. "You came," it whispered. Ward's expression softened for the first time. "We came." Above them, the sky split open as the last Rak's cruiser broke apart, falling like a dying star. The Marines looked up, the burning wreckage illuminating their armor in crimson light. "Status?" Voss demanded. Mercer scanned his console. Orbital resistance neutralized. Ground sectors secure. The planet's theirs again. Holt exhaled, slow and measured. It's over. Voss didn't answer. He watched as the Karen gathered around the Marines, their faces a mix of awe and terror. To them, the Deathworlders must have looked like gods of war, saviors wrapped in the scent of smoke and blood. Mercer's voice was quiet. We saved them. Voss shook his head. No. We avenged them. The comm crackled with Ward's transmission. Ground operation complete, sir. The racks are finished. A pause followed, heavy with something unsaid. But you should see their faces. They're afraid of us. They should be, Holt said, his tone flat. Fear is the price of survival. The bridge fell silent again. The flames on Karen Prime began to fade, leaving behind only the broken remnants of a world that had called for help and received a storm instead. Voss turned from the viewport, the faint reflection of fire still burning in his eyes. Prepare recovery teams. Begin evacuation for the wounded. Mercer hesitated. Sir, what do we tell them? The Karen? What name do we give to what just happened here? Voss's answer came without hesitation. Tell them we answered. Down below, the surviving Karen watched the human ships drift across the sky, their engines trailing light like comets. For them, salvation had come not in the form of angels, but in the fury of Deathworlders who had learned long ago that peace only followed fire. In the silence that settled over Karen Prime, the war was over, but the echo of humanity's arrival would haunt the stars. And as the fleet regrouped above the scarred planet, even Voss could not shake the feeling that something irreparable had begun. The racks were destroyed, the Karen saved, and the galaxy, once again, had been reminded of what humanity truly was. The Deathworlders had answered the call. But in the cold reflection of victory, their captain wondered whether the universe would ever forgive their mercy written in flame. The hum of battle thrummed through the command deck like a living heartbeat. Commodore Rian Voss stood at the forefront, his uniform torn at the sleeve, face smeared with soot and blood. The fleet, his fleet, hung poised at the edge of the Xel'Tor nebula, where a desperate transmission had ignited this entire war. The aliens had called for help. The Deathworlders had answered, with fire. Across the wide view pane, beams of blue and crimson light crossed like a web of fury. Ships burned in silence, their final screams lost to the void. Voss's knuckles tightened on the railing. Status of the Aegis. Still holding, sir, replied Lieutenant Cade, his voice a rasp of exhaustion. Her main guns are gone, but she's buying us time. Voss nodded. Time. That was the one currency they no longer had. The Xel'Tor Confederacy's plea for aid had drawn half the Deathworlder fleet into this graveyard. They'd come not as conquerors, but as reluctant saviors, to drive back the Varken Dominion, a race that had once enslaved half the known sector. Yet somewhere between mercy and vengeance, the line had blurred. Commodore, called Commander Holt from the tactical pit, enemy reinforcements inbound. 6 heavy destroyers, vectoring from the nebula's far side. They're masking in the radiation. Then they'll burn in it, Voss said quietly. Deploy our drones. I want every particle cannon primed. Holt hesitated. That'll drain the reactors below redline. Voss turned toward him, eyes cold and unblinking. Then we burn bright before we die. The words rippled through the bridge like an oath. The crew obeyed without protest, the air crackling with grim determination. Outside, the void erupted. Swarms of drone interceptors streaked into the nebula, their trails shimmering like silver veins against the dark gas clouds. A moment later, the enemy destroyers broke cover, hulking, spined silhouettes, firing plasma volleys that painted the Deathworlder formation in light. The Iron Creed, Voss's flagship, shuddered violently as a blast tore through its port flank. Sparks rained from the ceiling, and the scent of burning circuits filled the air. Port shields failing, shouted Holt. We're losing control of Deck 6. Seal it off, Voss commanded. Evacuate whoever you can. Cade slammed a fist on the console. Sir, we can't hold this line forever. The fleet's breaking apart. The Vigilance just went dark, core breach. Voss watched as a bright bloom blossomed in the distance, one of their proudest ships torn apart in silence. His throat tightened. He'd promised those men that this mission was one of honor, not annihilation. That helping the Xel'Tor was proof that Deathworlders were more than beasts of war. Yet here they were, proving the galaxy right, monsters, forged for destruction. A flicker on the sensor grid caught his attention. A message beacon, weak, but alive. "Patch it through," he ordered. The voice that filled the deck was ragged, alien, yet unmistakably pleading. "Deathworlder command, we see your fire. The Dominion burns, but so do you. Why? Why save us if you destroy yourselves?" Voss closed his eyes. The voice belonged to High Seer Thalen of Xel'Tor, the one who had sent the original distress call. The irony burned deep. "Because," Voss said softly, "some of us still believe in debts paid in full." Static swallowed the channel. Holt stared at him, uncertain whether to question or salute. But Voss didn't notice. His focus shifted to the holographic display, where the Dominion flagship, the Zarkul, loomed.